There we go. All right, so the stream should be up for video 2, period 4. We built our player, but the problem is with our player, our hitbox is all over the place. How many people think it's a good idea to map that hitbox all around every single frame of every single animation for this player? No one's hands are going up. That's a good thing. So we're not going to have that actually there. What we're going to do in the instructions is we're going to recognize that the player we don't want there. Yesterday, I think we might have forgotten to crop. Thank you. Yesterday, I just want to make sure, did we go through and shift-click to crop everything? I think we did. Hold shift, click the crop button, it tightens down on everything. We did that, and then setting the origin point. Oh, that's one thing I don't know if we did. So the origin point is this icon right here. It's above the collision polygon point. So the origin point, we want to be, here it said you should notice a red spot on the layer. There it is right there. It's right on his eye. It's going to be different for every single frame. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to change where the origin point is. We're going to use the number pad on our keyboard, and it has to be the number pad on the keyboard. You cannot use the numbers across the top row QWERTY. Press number 2 with one frame and watch what happens. It drops it down to the middle of the bottom of the layer. I don't want to do this for every single one, so I'm just going to right-click on this. Let's see, where is it? Is it, do we have to right-click? Oh, right-click over here where I have it adjusted for frame number 1 and apply to whole animation. And we'll see all the other 9 animations now have the origin point for this idle animation set to the middle of the image. We may adjust the origin point a little bit to be more in line with the middle of his foot, but that'll be something we try out afterwards. Andrew, is the idle animation looped? Yes, it is looped. 9 frames per second. Okay? So we apply it here. I may move it to the middle to be in the underneath the center of mass of it, but we'll get there when we have it. We have it looped. Andrew? I held shift while I clicked this crop button up here, and it got rid of the empty space around the tiki person, face, mask, anthropomorphic being. I don't know how to describe him. So we did go through, we did add the behaviors, but it's not going to fly like this. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to go and get rid of the behaviors on this tiki sprite. Because we're going to make a dummy placeholder that's going to move around. So for all of these, we're going to just right-click and remove, right-click and delete. And we need another new sprite for the actual player to move around. So I think for this one, we're going to rename it Player Box. And I'm just going to go and create a sprite on here. I'll give it a random paint bucket color. I think the guide has us giving it a shade of blue. We're going to adjust its opacity so that it's a little bit lower than what's there. Maybe I'll change the opacity to like 125 and paint it in. So I just picked a color that's here, and now it's kind of see-through. So you can still see the person underneath, the tiki face underneath, versus if I had this color back at the 255 full opaque, and I paint that in, I can't see it. I could adjust the opacity here by saying like 25%. Either way is fine. But we want to have a hitbox that's clearly around this. But now we're going to run into other issues where snap to grid is no longer helping us. So what we want to do is we want to set the image point of our sprite to the image point of our player box. So I'm going to call this one player box because this is what we're actually going to move. This is what we're actually going to make invisible. So one more thing I have to do for the player box, I'm going to open the player box and I'm going to set its origin point using the number 2 on my keypad, hot down to the middle of the bottom. So that's like a hotkey. Because remember, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You can see it dancing around to the different hot spots. 4, 8, 6, and 2 are the outer middle edges. 1, 3, 7, and 9 are the corners, and 5 is the very center. I want it on the very bottom for number 2. Okay? So Snap to Grid is going to give us an issue now because now it's not going to let me do what I want to do. So I'm going to click anywhere in this gray space and turn off Snap to Grid because it's going to let me better adjust where I want this hitbox on the player to be. Let's see, did I turn off Snap to Grid? I clicked it, but I didn't uncheck it. So now I'm going to be able to resize this hitbox to actually better reflect the size of the player that's around it. Okay, so I'll resize it. I think they give a suggested size inside here. I'm going to keep feet to feet and then to the top of the head. I'm going to leave the hands outside of the hitbox for right now. So my size ends up being about 67 by 110. The guide says resize it to be 53, which is just including this width right here. But I think that's kind of foolish to leave these edges of the feet unincluded. So I'm going to go corner to corner with the feet and just get it as close as I can because the feet will be there. We'll keep everything else centered as we move. So this is our player box. And this is what we're actually going to add those behaviors to for scroll 2, for platform behavior. What's up? Turn off Snap to Grid. So click anywhere that's not the background and find the Snap to Grid that we just had on yesterday and uncheck it so that it gets turned off. Okay? So I sized it the way that I like it. I'm going to go add some behaviors to it. I know I need the platform behavior. And I know I want the scroll to behavior. So platform and scroll to are here. The only thing that we need to do is add an action for our little tiki sprite in the background to follow the player box and matching its origin point with the hitbox's origin point. So if I go to the event sheet and add in one line of code, which is going to be system every tick, add an action on the sprite, and actually I don't want to name it sprite. I'm going to rename it player. So we've got player and player box. Player box is the one we control. Player is the animation. Add an action to player, and I'm going to have it set position to another object, and that other object is going to be player box. At image point 0 is the hot spot we set on the bottom of the middle. So now if I preview this a little bit better, but you can see I'm kind of moving around now and I've got this hover effect. So my character can kind of hover over the edge of the stage. Remember I said there was something wrong with the way the middle point of the first image actually stays? So back on the actual player, rather than using that number 2 to pick the very middle of the animation, I'm actually going to better adjust it to find the midpoint of the feet and the center of mass here. And I'm going to set it to like right at this corner right here. And then I'm going to take this origin point 0 up over here. And I'm going to right click and I'm going to say apply the whole animation. And so what that does is it shifts the image point a little bit so that it's more under the center of mass of the player. And what that's going to do is when we actually go to play, take a look at how the player box now better fits around the player. And I have a little bit of mismatch there, so I may move it a little bit further under the heel of the player. Because I think at this point, let's see, where do I fall? At this point, I just fell right there, even though I was kind of still clipping on the edge. So it kind of falls there. So I may move it a little bit more towards that front foot, just because I think it didn't line up like perfect. So I'm going to move it a little bit more towards the front of the foot this way, over here. Same thing, apply the whole animation. And let's see how that player box now sticks. Oh, that's much better. So I can really not see where the player box ends and where the feet change over. So if I move this way, right on here, I fall off right when his feet are not on there. So we've added one line of code on here, but we have some problems here. Can anybody identify some problems on this? Jordan, what do you think?
The player doesn't turn left when you go left.
Nope, he kind of moonwalks there. What else? There's only the idle animation. So he's kind of like, you know, teleporting without actually moving. So the first thing that we're going to fix is that the player doesn't face the right way. So in order to do that, we need to track when the keyboard is pressing the left arrow key and the right arrow key. So back on the layout, we need to add, and these are going to be mismatched for a while. On the we need to add the keyboard as an object. So add the keyboard as an object. That way we can track key presses. So it says keyboard is available for the entire project. And then back on the event sheet, we can have on left arrow pressed. So it's a function or an event for the keyboard. On key pressed, choose the left arrow key. And we can add an action to the player. And it's just called mirror. Set mirrored. So the first one we want to be set mirrored, which will work, but we're missing the other half. So now as I move this way, it looks all right. I move back the other way, it looks all right. And now I'm just sliding backwards again when I go to the right. We need the other half of this code, because what has to happen when I press the right arrow key? What are we looking for? Turn back around, be not mirrored. So I can just copy this line of code, clicking on this little green arrow, copy and paste, change this to be the right arrow, and change this to be not mirrored. So in 3 lines of code, we now have a player that faces the right way, and is like kind of animated in the fact that it's waiting to move. So we've got our action for mirrored and not mirrored, but it still looks weird moving around without other animations. So we made a couple other platforms. We changed some things. I think here the guide is telling us that right now we can't really see a lot. So let's change our window size. I think on the layout, the default is at 854 by 480. You'll find it in Project View down here on the bottom. 855 by 480. They're going to say let's change it to 800 by 600. And as we do that, we'll get a little bit larger window to play in. We can see more of our stage as we go to move around it. But it's up to you. If you want to make it a little bit larger, make it a little bit larger. As I increase the sizes on these window for the viewport size, like let's say I double this size and do 1600 by 1200, and I go to play on this one, what's the overall effect is I see a lot less of the player, which may be a good thing because maybe the animations aren't going to be perfect. We don't want to be zoomed in all the way. But you can adjust the size, and now I can see like all 4 platforms that I laid out for my character to jump on. All right, I'm going to go back window size, and maybe I'll say 1200 by 800 for that size and see if I like that one. That's going to kind of be like a happy medium in between there. Yeah, so I see a little bit more, but it's not so far zoomed out that I can't really tell how big the player is. So I'll leave that one there like that for the size.
What was the size you put there?
The size that I left there,
Yeah.
I left it as 1200 by 800. You could also do 1200 by 900, but it's really up to you what you like, whether you want to be zoomed out or zoomed in. So now that we have somewhere to jump, we can see more of what's going on. We're going to work on the rest of the player animations so that it doesn't look like we're just like Gumby ice skating through things like the character Gumby. So on here, lost my guide. Where are we going? All right, so we need to start repeating what we did yesterday. So this is all going to go inside the actual player and not the player box. So I'm going to double click on player, and we're going to start adding some more animations. So if I right click over here, I can add an animation. This one's going to be called idle to run. I think I can name it exactly like that and have spaces in the names and it will still work. I need another animation for run. I need another animation for jump from run. And I want another animation for jump from stand. So I have idle when the character's not moving, idle to run, which is going to be what they call a tween, where we're going in between idle and running motion. Then a run where we're actually moving, jumping from a run versus jumping from a stand. Because if somebody's doing like a long jump, it's different than if they're jumping in place. We want to animate that differently. So for each of these animations, we're going to go through and change a little bit here. Right now, idle's the only one we have. But we have all these empty animation frames on here. So I think at this point, I need my media drive back up because I'm going to go and get some more images for the player. So I have idle. I want that idle to run image. And I want the one that is all of them together. It's idle to run. So if I right click on this one and choose download, idle to run is now in my downloads. What else did I want to grab? We wanted to grab run. So I'm going to grab the one that says run.png. Should be all the way down. Here it is, the first one for this one. Right click, download. What else did they say we're taking? Jump from run. So we'll go back to player. We'll find jump from run. There's jump from run, so I'll download that one. And then we're going to find jump from stand. I'll let you, after we finish the video tutorials, finish teeter backwards, teeter forwards, attack standing, attack crouching, and hurt. But we'll do these ones together. So the last one was jump from stand. We'll go through, each one is going to be a little bit different. So yes, some of them will be looped. Like run needs to be looped while you're actually running. Where's my jump from stand file. So let's go download jump from stand. All right, so I have my images downloaded. So right-click the animations bar. We added a new animation. We remained it idle to run, things like that, so we can see everything. The first frame is empty. We're going to right-click in this white space. Again, remember, you can't click on frame number 0 and get the import frame from sprite strip option. You have to right-click on the white space. Import frames from strip, and then in my downloads, I'm going to have idle to run. It's all one image, so Construct should know that I have 7 images that I want, and I'm going to replace the existing animation here. Now, we have some repeated work to do from yesterday. We need to shift crop to shrink down all these images so that they're all tighter around the actual piece. Then we need to move the hit point to where it is for the idle animation. So to get it to be the same spot on the idle animation, I'm going to go back to the idle animation and just right-click on Origin and choose Apply to All Animations. And by doing that, did I actually do it? Right-click, Apply to All Animations. I don't know if it's taken through. We might have to do it for each one.
Wait, try clicking the animation again.
Idle.
On the idle to run, just click the first animation.
Click. Oh, you mean click the first? No, it's still. Oh, so it grabbed it for these, but it didn't grab it for the other for this one. So maybe on this one here, I'll right-click and apply to whole animation. It'll grab frame number 0. Good catch. I don't know why it does that. I would assume it would do it for that one. Now, we don't have anything in run, but the origin point is set to there. Same thing with jump from run, same thing with jump from stand. For idle to run, are you back there? Oh, idle to run lost some of them. Right-click, apply to whole animation. Oh, you know what it might be? I think when you make changes, you have to close in order for it to save, rather than going to another animation. Yeah, now my idle to run is saved versus going to the other one, kind of moved it back. So there's idle to run, but we want to update some of these facts for idle to run. And I think they list them in here for, let's see. Idle to run, we should get rid of the empty frame, import from sprite strip, check the number of cells, it's okay, delete the empty frame, you don't need it. We grab the idle animation, shift to crop to remove the areas we don't need. In the properties bar, we're going to set this speed to 15 frames per second. No loop. And then as we go through and do other ones of these, we're going to go and grab run now, right click, import frames from strip. I'm going to go find the run animation. It knows there are 21 run animations. Same thing, I'm going to shift click to crop all of them. I'm going to go back to the idle to run first animation and go to apply to all animations and go check out my run animation and apply this to the whole animation so that frame number 0 is saved. So it's keeping track of where our little tiki person is. For the speed of run, we're going to set it to 15. And run is the only one that we need to loop because we want to loop while we're running around. I'm going to close this menu and open it up so I don't lose those image point changes. And I'll check out to make sure the first one of run is below the center of mass of the tiki, and it is. Jump from run, right click, import frames from strip, jump from run, 18 frames, shift click crop to tighten everything up, back to idle to apply to whole animation, apply to all animations. Check jump from run, apply to whole animation. So now jump from run matches the same origin point as it's moving through here. The speed for jump from run needs to be set to 15. And we got one more time, jump from stand. Right click, import frames from sprite strip. Jump from stand is the file. 21 frames. Shift click on crop to tighten up and get rid of all that empty space. Back to the idle one to grab that same frame number, apply to all animations. Back to jump from run, check out frame number 2. Apply to whole animation, and now frame number 0 is set. And then for jump from run speed, jump from stand speed, we're going to set to 22. So going through here, idle is 9 for the animation speed with a loop. Idle to run is 15, no loop. Run is 15 with a loop. Jump from run is 15 without a loop. Jump from stand is 22 without a loop.
What's jump from run?
Jump from run is 15, no loop. And it looks like I lost some of my animation pieces. Like it'll act funny here. So I'm going to find one that is working. Right click, apply to whole animation, close the window, come back and check out jump from stand, find one that is working, and apply to whole animation, close the window. Just because I think changing more than one animation frame is making it not save the changes. Now every time I look through here, I can preview these. See, here's my little idle animation. Here's idle to run. It just happens very, very quickly. Where now we're ready to move into the actual run animation. And for this one, here's jumping from a running point. And here's jumping from a standstill position. Okay, so we've got that change. Now we have to figure out how do we get the program to know when to use these animations. Yes?
I don't have loop or not.
Idle is on loop. Idle and run are the only two that have loop checked. Idle to run, jump from run, and jump from stand do not have loops. All right. So now we need to set up conditions for when we want different things to happen. So I think we're going to get through animating the player, and then tomorrow we'll add in the enemies. And it's going to be a very similar process for the enemies. We just have some trickery to do to make the enemies kind of have an AI and move themselves around on the platform. So back to the event sheet now. We need to figure out how do we get the player to play some animation other than this idle one. So we need to know that when we start moving, we want to play the idle to run, the transition that's going to start the character running. So what we can do is we can say player box, and I think there's a platform on moved. Let's see, compare speed double jump is moving. I think it's is moving. I don't think, oh no, on move. There is an on move trigger. So this is an animation trigger. On moved, we want to add an action to the player to, I think it's set animation. And we're going to set our animation to idle to run. So idle to run needs to have those quotes around it in red. When you start up, you're going to see 2 quotes inside here. Just delete the first quotation mark, the last quotation mark, and then double click on the animation you want to get it named correctly. And it's going to play from the beginning. So now, all right, it's a little better, but now he's just kind of ice skating, celebrating the Olympics. But that's it. All right, So what do we do after idle to run has finished? We're going to add an event. This time is going to be on the player, and it's going to be on animation finished. And it's going to be on a specific animation finished. When idle to run finishes, we want to add an action to the player to set its animation to run. So now our character starts running, but then our character never stops running. Big into running in place. Andrew.
Yours is platform is moving. It's moved, right?
Mine says platform on moved. It's an animation trigger. So if you look at it, over here, there's is moving, and then there's on moved. They're both in the platform section, but this is for platforming. This is for platforming triggering animations. Okay? All right. So we've got animation idle to run, player set to run. Now, we don't want to keep on running when we stop. So what we'll do is we'll add an event for the player box, and it's going to come from the platform menu, and we're going to get on stopped from the animation triggers platform section. On stopped, we want to go back and set the animation for the player to idle. Animation is going to be set to idle. So now I can run, I can stop. Stopping's a little bit abrupt. Well, we might be able to make a reverse tween as an enhancement so that we have it. And then there's still issues going on here that if I start moving from a jump, it doesn't recognize that I've moved and stopped. So it's not perfect, but it's still cooler than the, pixel art placeholders we've been using so far in here. And then he's also, at this point, I got stuck in an is moving because it's constantly like falling a little bit on the edge, so it thinks it's moving. So there are times when your player will glitch, but we can deal with it. All right. The last thing that we want to have on here is player box, and it's going to be on jumping. So platform on jumping, but we don't want any action to go in here. Instead, we need to check another condition on here. So I'm going to go right click on this, add, and I'll do a blank sub event, and I'll do another blank sub event. Because one of these is going to be if we're standing still, and one of these is going to be if we're moving. So what we'll do on here for this first one, we'll say add an action to the player box, and it's going to be is moving as a platform trigger. So if the player box is moving on a jump, if you are moving, set the player animation, and this one's going to be jump from run. The opposite of this is there's not an is not moving. So we have to do is moving again. But we can right click on is moving and invert it to turn it into a not statement. So it's reversing it. So if you are not moving, we want to set the player animation to jump from stand. So now jumping is going to be almost all set. There's only one thing that we have to do is what animation do we go to when we're landing? So if you can see, I can jump in the air, but then I kind of slide after the jump, and then my character falls. So the very last things that we have to do in here for today, and this is where I'm going to stop the video after we get this done, we've got to repeat this same logic segment right here. So I'm just going to copy and paste, and I'm going to start picking things apart. And instead of on jump, I'm going to double click this and change it to on landed. There's my animation for on landed. And then this one's the same. If we are moving, we should go back to a run. And if we're not moving, we should go back to idle. And right there in 12 lines of code, we have our player more or less pretty well controlled, able to jump around the different level pieces, and looks like it's animating. Yes, you can still tweak this. You can adjust the jump strength. You can add double jump to the player box. And as a matter of fact, I think I'm going to go add double jump to the player box because why not? Double jump is always more fun than a single jump. But sometimes it could be an unlock. You have to unlock his special purple shoes that are purple and gold instead that give you double jump, and they only last a little while. Something like that. All right, I'm stopping the stream here before we make the enemy. So yesterday we added the background, the levels, we started the player. Today we finished the player. There's still more player animations we could do. We'll leave those up to you for later based on teetering backwards on an edge, teetering forwards on an edge, getting hurt, attacking from standing, and attacking from crouch position. All right. Have a good one. Andrew.